Hello. Now, welcome to the second part of our discussion for the month of June 2024. And I'm still talking about how to thrive in life, part 5. So you can say this is how to thrive in life, part 5B. I'm talking about the acronym E, or the letter E in the acronym Thrive. And I say that stands for embracing a personal walk with God. That among other things, having this personal walk with God make wise. It leads to wisdom. And when we are wise, we cannot be disadvantaged in life, regardless of the location, regardless of the region that we live in. It does not mean these external factors will not come our way. But once we have the solution, the problem is not the problem. The problem is not counted as problem. Rather, it belongs, or rather, it becomes a walkover for us. So, walking with God makes us wise in the dealings of life. And this is why I say, when people don't build their personal walk with God, they don't know what they are missing. When people don't invest in their relationship with God, they don't know how they are shortchanging themselves in other aspects of life. And this is not about going to church. Like I said, this is not about a religious affiliation or even religious activities that you're doing some things for maybe some pastors or in your church, but it's about saying you know God intimately. And how do you know God intimately? You spend time with Him, you spend time in fellowship, you spend time praying, you spend time worshiping God. And I often tell people, particularly if you live in a very fast-paced society like some of us do, that it doesn't have to be something elaborate for a start. Because some people say, oh, okay, you're talking about working with God. I don't even know how to start. Just start where you are. Just start, even if it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes. If you start from there, you are sincere with it, you'll be amazed at how you can keep growing and keep growing and keep expanding. It's just like any relationship, any other person. Think about maybe the closest person to you and how you started the relationship. The initial time, did you spend maybe 10 hours discussing? No. Maybe it was just a casual meeting and then it was followed by maybe a phone conversation and then maybe a little time together, and over time the person became close to you. It's the same way, because God is not a thing. God is not a feeling. God is real. The Spirit of God is real. He's a person. He wants to relate with you the way you relate to your close friends, associates, and all of that. And it takes time to actually build this relationship. And that is what I am talking about. That the time you don't invest in quality fellowship with God will not yield to you. So it's not like a gift that will just come and you just, when you hear people say, oh, God spoke to me or God led me, those things are not magical. They are product of intimacy that people have built over time. And I am saying you can start that. You can do that if you don't let the challenges of everyday living overwhelm you. You start by separating some time every day for a start to begin to pray. Or you can even say, God, I want to know you, help me. And then when you begin to do that, you begin to pray, you begin to read the Bible with openness of heart, with genuineness, with willingness. Then you begin to see, like, life opening up to you, I should say. God opening you up to certain things and certain levels and dimensions, which of course will relate or will impact on your everyday living, every aspect of life. That the knowledge of God is way beyond religious thing, is way beyond what you do as a religious emblem. It covers every aspect of life. Probably if you have read about Ben Carson, he talked about how he was in an operating room. He was operating a particular patient, and it just became complex. He didn't know what to do, and just, God, how do I stop this bleeding or something like that? And it was just directed. He just puts his maybe needle or whatever in a particular spot and the bleeding stopped. So that is what we are talking about, that you can bring your work with God into your everyday life and you can see the effect, the result. So that the knowledge of God makes us wise, and the wiser we are, the stronger we become, the more impossible it is for situations and circumstances of life to overcome us or overwhelm us. We don't become victims of life's challenges. when we have this thriving walk with God. So that people can make it, quote and unquote, without God, but it's one thing to make it, it's another thing to keep making it, and it's another thing to remain relevant all through one's life, and of course, even life beyond here and now. So, walking with God, let me just wrap up by talking about maybe 3 essentials that include and that will make us to thrive in everything that we do or in any area that we find ourselves. The first thing is that walking with God, it entails faithfulness to God. It entails faithfulness to God. That as you are growing in life, regardless of where you find yourself, do not abandon God. If you are very successful, thank God for the opportunities that have come your way, for the people that are around you, the relationships that make it possible, the skills that you have, the timing, and how everything worked out for you to your advantage. And then in moment of adversity as well, don't throw God away. Don't throw that, oh, God is this, God is that. God is still there for you, he will help you. So faithfulness to God means in good times you acknowledge him, in not so good times you acknowledge him because you know he has the solution to whatever situations, challenges or difficulties you may have. Now, walking with God also involves being guided by him, direction. If you read Isaiah 48:17-21, very powerful scriptures, he said, the Lord your God teaches you to profit and lead you in the way you should go, right? People have avoided tragedies in life. People have avoided huge losses in business just by being guided by the Lord. That if you've read about maybe John D. Rockefeller, how he was to invest in, I think, the Titanic ship, and how he was constrained somehow from investing in it, and you know what happened to Titanic and afterwards. And there are countless examples like that in different aspects of everyday life. There are people who say, I wanted to do something, or something, like we say, told me to go this way, and that led to my breakthrough, or events and circumstances are just orchestrated in a way that you cannot explain. So this is one reason why, for example, not everybody will succeed in every land. Because, for example, some people are even in the wrong location for themselves, right? The wrong location, and right or wrong in this context is not about externalities like we've talked about, but in relation to God's purpose or God's counsel, God's plan for individual lives. We talked about that at the beginning of this series. So if you want to know more about that, you can go into the first part of the discussion, that how much we align with God's plan, with God's agenda, God's purpose for our life to a large extent is what determines whether we thrive in any land. So that's why people can go to the most prosperous nation on the earth and struggle endlessly. And people may be in maybe some of the most deprived regions of the world and still do well. The difference is how much they align with God's design for their lives. And also related to that is faith in God. Faith in God. If you read Hebrews 11:32-34, it talks about Daniel, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, Gideon. He said, through faith they subdued kingdoms. They subdue kingdoms. That if you have a walk with God, a personal walk with God, it will manifest in your level of faith and level of positivity. You believe all things, you dare things, you are not timid, you are not taken aback, or you are not easily discouraged by external factors or by what people say. You dare things, you know that with God all things are possible. So with that, you approach life with boldness, with audacity, with steps, maybe beyond your level of education, maybe beyond your social class or social background. You are willing to just do things. When people say some things are impossible, you look back and say, really? How? And you begin to take steps along that line. If they say maybe people like you don't get this type of jobs, or certain type of jobs, certain type of positions are not for people maybe in this particular class or region, you want to shatter such biases, such prejudices. That something is inside of you that is pushing you out, causing you to dare, causing you to dream, causing you to attempt things. That is faith in God, and is an offshoot of walking with God. So people that know God, they are not afraid, they are daring, they are bold, they are confident, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve if you dare things, if you don't just take no at the first instance. You just say no, and you just say, okay, they say no, I'm not taking it. No, with faith in God, you are not afraid of being rejected. With faith in God, with this confidence, you approach things, you approach situations, circumstances. For example, I always say to people, if you are looking for a job or you are applying for a position, don't just say, oh, you won't be taking, apply first. Just apply first. That is what faith can do. It makes you to take that initial step. It makes you to make that initial move. It makes you to make that initial inquiry. And before you know it, other things, other possibilities will open up. That even if you don't reach that initial target, you will have achieved something beyond what you thought was possible. So with faith, we overcome the world. With faith, we thrive. With faith, we don't sink. And faith is a product, a direct offshoot of our knowledge of God. This is why this knowledge of God is very important, regardless of where we find ourselves. The people that truly know God, they do exploit in life. They are not exploited. They thrive. They are not victims of life situations and circumstances. I think this would be a convenient point for me to draw the curtain for the month of June 2024. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions about what I've talked about, particularly about this series, about 5 different weeks or 5 different topics that we've talked about under it, or 5 editions of this series, please go back, listen to them again and see how all of them connect together. And of course, do like it, share with somebody that you feel will be inspired by, will be impacted by it, and will be blessed by it. And I believe that their lives will not remain the same again. Our next meeting will be in July the 19th, 2024, and I hope to start a new discussion by then. If you have any questions before then, do get in touch, send me an email. The email address is in the description box, and I'll be happy to answer whatever query that you may have. So thank you for tuning in. God bless you, and see you next time.